dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Andrew back on Liberty Nation Radio. I remain your host, Mark Angelides, and we're continuing our conversation with senior political analyst Tim Donner and national security correspondent Dave Patterson. Dave, I just want to pick up where we left off in the last segment, talking about what's happening in Gaza, what's happening for the reconstruction, the peace deal, things like that. And you mentioned something. You said that Germany was rebuilt through the Marshall Plan. It's a great analogy, but I want to find out, do you think there's this deal they're talking about, this rebuilding of $50 to $80 billion, all brought in from the countries who wanted the photo op with Donald Trump? Do you think that it's as coherent as a Marshall Plan was? Because the Marshall Plan was, for all of its ills, it achieved what it set out to achieve, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that President Trump has insisted on this peace board to oversee the reconstruction, to ensure that there's no. This is kind of crazy to even say this in the Middle East. There's no fraud, but it's to monitor the rebuilding, and that's why he's kind of insisted on it and made himself the chairman of that board. But remember, it's not just Germany that the Marshall Plan provided a structured, disciplined reconstruction. Great Britain and France and everybody benefited from the Marshall Plan, which was, quite frankly, a more extensive and complex rebuilding of a society, of many societies. And cultures.
So what's happening here then? Tim, do you see this as a scaled down Marshall Plan? And if it is, does that make it easier to implement? And because it is smaller and somewhat less complex, because it's a blank slate. You're not really rebuilding anything that was a thriving culture before. I mean, it was.
That's exactly right. There was no real culture there other than the one that was fostered by Hamas, which, for all of its military adventurism and its terroristic activities, what perhaps the greatest grievance that the poor Gazans have had is that Hamas has basically starved its own people. It's used all of its available resources to try and destroy Israel rather than provide even a minimal level of, an acceptable life for its charges, the people that actually elected Hamas, which is hard to believe. But
some people would say, you get what you elect.
Well, it's absolutely true. Yeah. I mean, I think we all feel for the Gazans who've been starving and who've been brutalized by Israel having to take care of business after Hamas, slaughtered 1,200 innocents in the most horrific type of way. But through it all, what Hamas has done is brought the Gaza Strip as low as it could possibly go, because all of their resources have been used externally on a war that they were never going to win, rather than on the welfare of their own people. And it's really it's beyond criminal. But then again, Hamas, you've got to remember, this is an Islamist death cult. Essentially, we're not talking about a legitimate government. We're not talking about a legitimate political party. It is and always has been a death cult whose singular objective is to destroy Israel by essentially killing every Jew they possibly could. And of course, on October 7th, they succeeded with 1,200, but little did they know or realize or expect that it would lead to their own destruction.
Yeah, very much so. I think they relied too much on outside support because they'd seen college campuses. I mean, obviously not to the scale till after October the 7th, but they'd seen college campuses support. They'd seen people in the liberal media support the poor Gazans. They didn't realize that kind of support was actually just emboldening Hamas to essentially double down on what it had planned anyway, which, as you point out, is the destruction of Israel and the murder of Jewish people. All right, we're going to be back discussing what future, if any, Hamas has going forward after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.